But what I'm going to talk about today primarily are the snakes that I've caught up here on the mountain. Now, God created every single one of you with a purpose. Each one of you had a really unique purpose in mind when God created you. Well, that's the same thing that happens when God created all the animals, including the snake. Well, now, the snake's been around for a long time. Boy, you can look in Scripture and find the snake in a lot of places. And when they talk about the reptiles and the serpent, the snake has been given kind of a bad rap. He has a specific purpose also. God created everything with a purpose. And hopefully today when you leave here, you'll understand that the purpose, including these two bad guys I brought. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start down here at this end and I'm going to tell you about each animal I brought today. Now all of the animals that I show you today came from here, either on the mountain or right down at the base of the mountain here in San Bernardino County. So we're going to use a big word right now. I want all you guys to say indigenous. Okay, that's a kind of a neat word. You can go home and talk to your friends and say, yes, I was up there viewing some of the indigenous animals, you know, and they'll think, boy, you're a smart guy. Anybody know what indigenous means? Any of you guys? Indigenous means that it belongs here, okay? These animals were caught here. They're indigenous to the area. So if you go out here on a hike and you see one of these, this is a California mountain king snake. This snake is indigenous to this area. If you walk out here and you see one of these gray squirrels with a big bushy tail, is he indigenous to this area? Yeah. What if you walk out there and you see a coyote? Yeah. What about a zebra? Now where's a zebra indigenous to? Yeah. So indigenous just means they belong here. Now all of the animals I brought with me today, except for these two down here on the end, and at the end, if you wish, you'll have time to come up and take a close look. I brought with me two warm-blooded animals. The rest are reptiles, cold-blooded. I brought with me a pack rat or a wood rat. He's common. I caught him over at the camp. And I have some deer mice. Deer mice are getting a bad rap right now also. These guys I've raised since they were little babies. These are what we use for the food for these. That's natural food, along with some of the other animals we'll talk about. Now this snake right here is a common snake. It's found throughout the United States, but it's also found out here. It's a corn snake. Out of all of the snakes for pets, this is one of the few that you can purchase and you can raise as a pet. He is a good pet. Now if any of you guys out here are interested in snakes for pets or reptiles, what I suggest you do is go to the zoo, to the Natural History Museum or to the library and get books on the animals that you're interested in, learn as much as you can. Then you go to the pet store and you buy an animal that has been raised in captivity and is made for pets. This snake here, this mountain king snake, is protected. It's illegal to buy or sell one of these in the state of California. Now I have a permit to keep these and to use in the educational purposes so that you can see them. These two guys I have here, these are both California mountain king snakes. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that snake later because he has a unique coloring pattern, and that coloration is also found on one of the 5 poison snakes we have here in the United States, and we'll talk about that. This one here I caught up at the camp also. It's a rosy boa. One of the few boas that we have natural in California. Is also a good pet. This one here is a prairie king snake. He's found mostly in the Midwest, but he's also found in certain areas of California. Then I have these two bad guys. This one here, this black one, is the one that you need to be concerned with, and that's what I'm going to talk. Most of my talk today will be about the rattlesnakes. This one here is, again, one of the 5 poison snakes we have in the United States, and particularly in California, we just have a rattler. This black one is a subspecies of the western rattlesnake. He's found at the higher elevations. I have found 16 of these just right up in this area in the last year and a half. This one here is the more common of the rattlesnakes. It's a northern Pacific diamondback rattlesnake. It's in the western diamondback family, but he's found more in the lower elevations down in San Bernardino and in fact throughout Southern California. Then this is probably the most common snake of all. These two, there's 2 of them all up here, and they're all wrapped up in a ball. That's part of their protection. These are common gopher snakes. Then this one here, this one I got to pull out and show you because this one has a reputation already. This is a California king snake. Again, he's illegal to buy or sell, but we have a young lad here that found out that all snakes bite. Isn't that right, Jonathan? Yeah, hold up your finger. He just got bitten by this one. What happens if they get agitated, or Jonathan was holding one of the other snakes, then he decided he wanted to go hold this one and he reached over for it. This guy eats other snakes. So he thought that finger was lunch. Now this little guy right here, you notice this is the same kind of snake. This is a California king. This is a brown face. This is a California king, black face. This snake right here will be as big as this guy, but it takes him about 4 years to get that big. So you can see how small they start off. Then down here on the end, I've got lizards. Right in here, I've got alligator lizards. I have a sagebrush lizard and a western fence lizard. These are the ones you'll find running around out here. If you see these lizards scampering around, it's usually one of these 3 species right here. Then down on the end are the only 2 animals I brought with me that do not belong up here. They are not indigenous to California. They're tokay geckos, and they are mean. And I can attest to that. They bite hard. In fact, they hold on so strongly that you can't pull them off without killing them. So you have to kind of hold their head underwater so they can't breathe long enough, and then they'll finally let go. But we're going to talk now primarily about the rattlesnake. Now, I've been bitten twice with a rattlesnake, and I would like to prevent each and every one of you from not ever having to go through that experience. The odds of being bitten by a rattlesnake are very slim. Last year in the United States, there were 17,000 cases of snake bite. Out of that 17,000, 96.7% were from people messing with the snakes, poking at them, throwing rocks at them, thinking the snake was dead, picking it up. So very few people are accidentally bitten by a snake, and especially a rattlesnake. It's usually from handling the snake improperly or misidentifying the snake. Now, out of those 17,000 bites last year, there were 25 deaths. The United States, if you take it on an average, a 10-year average, averages only about 5 to 10 deaths a year. Last year was a high year. Most of the bites occur in Texas and Oklahoma. They have a strange thing they do there. It's called a rattlesnake roundup. And these guys go out to prove their macho or manhood, I guess, by playing with rattlesnakes. I highly recommend you do not do something like that. I have been shot. I've had bones broken. I was in the war. I was shot. Nothing hurt as much as the bite from that rattlesnake. Wow. And that thing, I spent 10 days in the hospital with that thing, and the pain is excruciating, and I'm going to talk about it a little more in detail. We have, in the United States, only 5 kinds of poison snakes. Most of the snakes, 80% of the snakes in the United States, are harmless, non-poison snakes. Now, there are some countries, or continents even, like Australia, where they have more poison snakes than they have non-poison. So we're pretty lucky, but only 5 kinds. But here in California, we're real lucky. We have 1 kind of poison snake. Anybody want to guess what that is? Rattlesnake, yeah. But we only have 1 kind, right? There's 38 kinds of rattlesnakes, folks. And we have just about all of them. We have the deadliest rattlesnake in the world, and it's the Mojave rattler. The eastern diamondback is considered the most dangerous only because it gets up to about 8 feet and about that big around. And it carries an awful lot of venom. Now, there's 2 kinds of venom that we have, and we'll talk about those. But remember, I said California only has 1 bad snake, and that's the rattlesnake, and he's really not so bad. When we get through, hopefully you'll understand that. In the United States, we have the rattlesnakes, we have the cottonmouth or water moccasin, which is the same snake. We have a copperhead, and these are all called pit vipers. Then we have 1 snake in the United States that's a member of the Cobra family that has an extremely lethal venom, and it's the only one that has that different venom that is a member of the Cobra family, which is called the coral snake. Now, the coral snake looks just like this guy. Come out of here. The coral snake looks just like this in color. Sometimes these snakes will have more of a yellow than a white color. But you'll notice that the yellow or the white is surrounded by black. The coral snake, the red and yellow touch. And a way to remember whether it's a bad snake or it's a look-alike is if red and yellow will kill a fellow. And that's a fact. It is absolutely lethal. And it's the most dangerous snake. But it's very small. It's smaller than this snake. Has little fixed teeth. 90% of the bites are on children. Rarely are adults bitten because the snake can't open its mouth big enough to bite you. It's usually in very small children. It's a pinch bite. It has a neurotoxic venom. Okay, we're gonna talk about two types. We got hemotoxic, which is from the rattlesnakes and the pit vipers. Then we have the neurotoxic, which is from the coral snakes and the cobras. Now, hemotoxic, all that means, hemo means blood, like your hemoglobin. That venom affects your blood, and it travels to your heart. Your blood actually thickens, and in fact, it's used in medical research and as medical science in various treatments of various blood disorders like hemophiliacs. But the neurotoxic venom, that affects your nervous system and your respiration. And it's much more lethal, but you don't have the pain that's associated with the pit vipers. Now, neuro means nervous system, hemo means blood, toxin just means poison. So hemotoxin, neurotoxin, two distinct types of venom, but two very different effects. This particular snake here, this black one, is a little bit more dangerous because of the fact that he's more shy than most snakes, and he's found up here in these mountains, and he hides out in the shadows underneath the crevices where the rocks, the granite rocks outcroppings where he hibernates in the wintertime. He rarely gets more than about a mile away from where he hibernates all summer long, because if this snake gets caught in a cold spell, if it gets too cold too quickly, I have seen snakes die less than 3 feet from their burrow. They just can't get any further. They're cold-blooded animals. They are entirely dependent on their surroundings rather than, like we are, being warm-blooded animals or the mammals. So if it gets too hot, you know, like sometimes when we get hot like it is now, you like to go lay around the pool, kick back, get a suntan. Well, if this snake does that, he's history. He dies. He gets too hot, or if he gets too cold, same problem with him. Now, we're going to talk about two other kinds of snakes that are not venomous. They do not have any poison, but they're also problems and they're threats. Anybody here go hiking out here? Do you guys, any of you guys go hiking or on a hiking mountain? Do you go alone? Good thinking. Never should you go alone out into the mountains or the rocks or hiking, because if you do come across a snake, what should you do?
Run.
Who said run?
I did.
That's a good idea too. I used to say, if you see a rattlesnake, take off. It's okay. I'm asking for the question. You had the answer, right? Stop, don't move. I used to tell people back when I first started, I said, if you see a rattlesnake or you hear a rattlesnake, get out of town, take off. Well, I changed my mind about a couple years ago. A friend of mine and I were walking up here in these mountains, and we were out looking for rattlesnakes. And we're walking along, and up here in these mountains, you know, you get down in these trails, you know, you might be kind of in a little canyon or down in a stream bed. Well, we heard the rattlesnake. I'm kind of walking along. My friend's right behind me. I heard this rattle, and it's a sound you never forget, and I'm going to make it rattle. Well, I stopped, but my friend, it sounded like the rattlesnake was right in front of me. So I froze. Well, he takes a step back. Not where he should have done. He stepped right back on top of one of these big black eyes, about 6 feet. He was very, very lucky. The Lord was looking out for this guy because he stepped close enough to the head that the snake couldn't turn and bite him. If he'd have stepped back a little further or in the middle, that snake can turn and get you. Well, now he's standing there right where I tell you, you know where you don't want to be is standing on top of a 6-foot rattlesnake. Not fun. Now he's standing there, and his color, this guy was a big, buff, tan guy. He looked pretty white when I looked back at him. And I'm standing over here, he's standing there with a snake. He said, Rick, I'll catch you later, I'm out of here. No, I didn't do that to him, but I tell you, it's pretty nerve-wracking because he's got a big fat foot like I do. And I had to get this thing down underneath and pin the snake down and for him to get out. So what I tell people now is if you hear the rattle, freeze. Find out where it is, then run. Then get out of town. But one of the problems, this rattlesnake is the fastest striking snake in the world. It strikes at 12 feet per second, which is quite fast. Now it's not unheard of fast. It's not so fast that you couldn't avoid it, but it's something that unless you're in prime, some of these race car drivers who have their reactions honed to perfection may be able to move faster than that snake with their hand. But I don't suggest people try it because it's not fun. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to make, these guys are so used to me they don't rattle sometimes. In fact, I'll try this guy, he's more likely. I'm going to try to make him rattle. You'll catch him, right, if he jumps out here? Okay. Now we need to be real quiet, and if you hear this sound, so if you hear that sound, be very cautious. Find out where it is. Now, the rattlesnake is unique. Isn't it interesting how God created this animal that has a venom that can kill you? Now, the smaller you are, the more dangerous that venom is. So, children, it's more dangerous to you than it is someone as big as I am. So you need to be extra careful. But isn't it neat how God gave it a warning system? You know what? This snake does not want to bite something as big as we are. Are we on the snake's food chain? Snakes don't eat people. So he doesn't want to waste his venom on you. God gave him that venom for a special purpose. That's to eat. That's how he survives. You take his venom away, the snake dies. Now the king snakes, they have a different way of eating. They don't have a poison. They constrict, like pythons and boas and the king snakes. They wrap around their prey, and every time the prey takes a breath, it squeezes and it tightens up till they can't breathe. It suffocates them. It doesn't crush them. It doesn't cut them in half. It just suffocates. They can't breathe. Then the snake swallows its prey whole. Well, the rattlesnake can't do that. It doesn't know how to do that. This venom is very precious, very special to him. So he uses it for his protection as well as to get food. So the last thing he wants to do is bite something as big as we are. So what do you think the first thing any snake wants to do when he sees a big old ugly human coming after him? Run. He's a wild animal. And wild animals like to get away. The first thing they do is take off. But now the rattlesnake has another method of letting us know. If, for instance, you can't get away from him, or you come down so quickly, one of the ways that you get in trouble is not staying on the trails. Sometimes when I'm out here hiking, especially in the mountains, going downhill, you see these switchback trails. They go back and forth. And sometimes I'm walking along and I can see the trail down there. And it seems kind of silly to walk around here when I can just cut down there. So I look around, well, maybe I'll just take the shortcut. Well, guess where the snakes hang out? In the shortcut, in the bushes. They stay where the rodents are. They stay away from where the humans are. Now, how do you think that snake knows you're there? Does he hear you coming and then take off and get away? Yeah, he smells or he feels the vibrations. Snakes do not have ears. This rattlesnake, when he was making that noise, he couldn't hear it. The other snakes can't hear it. But they are designed really neat. God had a really nice way of designing them perfectly. So their whole body, remember when they were condemned to crawl on their belly? Now their whole body lays on the ground. They've got some real sensitive jaw bones. they can pick up vibrations. When you think you're tiptoeing along, Mr. Snake knows you're there, and he gets out of town. But if you're walking along that trail and you decide to take a shortcut and you cut off that switchback, suddenly there you are in his territory, on him right now, real fast. The snake goes, oh no, you're gonna kill me, look at that big giant. So what do you think he's gonna do? Bite. He will not even rattle. He'll just bite. If you come on him that fast, he thinks, I'm gonna die anyway, I'm gonna take him with me. Phew. Not fun. I'm going to really get specific about that part in a little bit. So, like I said earlier, out of all the cases of snake bite we have, and we only had 17,000, that seems like a lot of bites, right? But you take a country like India, they have 5,000 deaths per year from snake bites. They have the biggest poison snake in the world over there, the king cobra. It's not, the venom is not the deadliest venom known to man, but when you get a snake that's that big, he's got enough venom to kill an elephant. So he doesn't have any problem with a little old human. So remember, stay on the trails. Now, if you're in an area that's open year-round and there's lots of activity, you're not going to have to worry about the snakes too much anyway. And especially over at our camp in Green Valley Lake, I go out there all the time and I sweep it. This year, I've only found 2 even close to on our property. Where the first year I was up there, I found 7 or about 10 on the property. So the more activity that's there, the less chance you find in the snake. So stay on the trails, watch where you're going. Now in the spring and in the fall, we've got to be a little bit more cautious, because the snakes, to survive the winters up here, even down below, they still hibernate. They just don't do it as in big groups like they do up in the mountains and back east, where we have, up here we have a lot of snow and a lot of cold. These animals have to get into burrows, and they normally find an empty animal burrow. They get back in and they go into total hibernation. When those snakes hibernate, their body temperature lowers even more than it already is. Their respiration, everything slows down, and they can survive the winter. And they usually do it in big groups. To give you an example, I was back in Tennessee, and I was back there looking for snakes. And it was still early in the spring, and I didn't think they would be out yet, so I still felt pretty sure, because there was still quite a bit of snow in the area. And I found a fox den, and it looked like it was in a perfect location for these snakes to hibernate. So I crawled into this hole, and I had a flashlight, and I could barely get into this foxhole. And I look inside, and I look around, I don't see anything. So then I try to wiggle out, and I kind of go like this. Well, when I did, I had to turn, and my flashlight was shining up above me, and about that far above my head was probably 75 to 100 rattlesnakes in this big ball, just writhing. The hair stood up on me. I couldn't breathe, I couldn't talk, I couldn't even scream. I just kind of eased out of that hole. It's a very scary, even though they're hibernating, still scary. In fact, when they tell you, one of the things they tell you, if you're bitten by a snake, by a rattlesnake, they say, don't panic. Got news for you, folks. Easier said than done. But in the spring and in the fall, these guys will be found together. Now, this time of year, they've pretty much all disseminated into the various areas, and they're usually not found in immediate proximity of each other. But in the springtime, when you go out into the desert, excuse me, guys, in the springtime, when you go out in the desert, or even up here, you need to be very careful, because when they first come out of hibernation, they're kind of, more irritable, they're grouchy, they're hungry because they haven't eaten, and they're together. So what you want to be careful of is around these rocky areas. And I'll tell you, I'm a big rock climber. I love to climb the rocks. Always have, even when I was your age, way back then. But especially out in areas like 29 Palms and Joshua Tree and Yucca Valley, in these areas, some great rock climbing, but also some very dangerous areas. In fact, I was walking out by the camp. We've got these big granite outcroppings. And I decided it was a really nice morning, and I thought, it was the spring, I said, you know what, there might be some snakes out. I'm going to go out and take a look. And so I walked out on this one area, and the sun was shining, and the birds were saying, boy, it was perfect, and I was just communing with the Lord. I wasn't paying attention to what I was out there for. But I looked down, I'm standing on this big rock, and I look over the edge of the rock, and I don't see anything, so I jump down to the next rock. Boom, instantly, right within striking distance is one of these black guys. My heart goes, pounds. I go, oh my gosh. Jump down the next rock. Man, that was close. Except for the fact I didn't look down there either. 2 on the next rock. Now, again, the Lord was with me because I jumped down on this end of the rock. If I'd have been down on that end of the rock, I'd have had a choice, a 2,000-foot drop or 2 rattlesnakes. Fortunately, I was able to get off onto the ground, get away, thank the Lord, and also go back and remember my own lecture. First of all, I shouldn't have been out there alone looking for snakes. Second of all, I should have looked, and I didn't. Out in Takowitz Canyon in Palm Springs, a Cub Scout group was out there. I had talked to the leader of this Cub Scout group, told her to have the kids be aware of the rocks this time of year. I don't know whether she just chose to ignore me or thought I was some crackpot. I was out there, I was all dirty and grubby and had a beard and everything. They thought I was some kind of desert rat or something, but she didn't pay much attention. Less than 20 minutes later, an 8-year-old Cub Scout stuck his hand right in the face of a rattlesnake climbing up on a rock. He couldn't see what he was putting his hand in. They took him to the hospital. Remember, the smaller and younger you are, the more problems you'll have with that bite. It can kill you. Not necessarily, but it can, and especially when you're young, like I said, because of your body size. So there are some precautions that we can take. And one of the things I would hope that you would learn today is when you go away from here, is just to pay a little bit of attention. When you're out here in this area, you know, it's okay to look, it's okay to observe the snakes and all the animals, but don't touch them, don't fool with them. And I'll tell you, one of the first things that people want to do when they see a snake is they want to pick up a stick or a rock or something and throw at the snake. Yet, if they go out here and you're hiking, you guys have seen these gray squirrels we have around here, the big bushy tails. Now those are neat squirrels. They're so cute to watch, their little hands and they eat. They're tree squirrels. But that squirrel is a rodent. The squirrel can carry rabies. He's not as likely to as another squirrel we have up here, and in fact, down below, he's even more prevalent, especially in the desert areas and in Orange County. There's a little brown ground squirrel. He's not, you know, he doesn't have that big bushy tail, and he's just about that long. He's called a Mojave ground squirrel. Now, I see people actually on the trails, I've seen them take peanuts and feed that little ground squirrel, and yet they'll pick up a stick and go whacking at the snake. Well, I'm going to talk about the ground squirrel a little bit here and see if you think he's quite as cute when I get through. Now, the snake has a purpose. Remember I told you God created everything with a purpose. Well, so does the squirrel. But last year we had a real problem. We had an enormous amount of rain last year. And I'm sure that a lot of you saw in the news mountains, you know, where the landslides and houses were sliding. A lot of it was blamed on the poor landfill. But a lot of it also, if you would look at the real cause, and which some of the scientists have, that ground squirrel undermines practically everything that it can get near, and it just creates this maze. There were hundreds and hundreds of cases of people being with broken legs, horses with broken legs last year, from stepping on the ground and it gives way from those ground squirrels. And I don't know if you've ever been on a horse that falls. It's not fun, and if it breaks its leg, they usually put the horse away. But that's just one minor thing. That ground squirrel is the #3 carrier of rabies in the entire United States. It also carries a flea that causes plague. These signs are being posted all over. In fact, there's already been 2 outbreaks of plague this year. For 29 straight years now, including this year, there's been at least 1 outbreak of bubonic plague. Now, if you don't know what plague is like it's a disease that's spread very easily, and it kills a lot of people. It used to kill lots of people. Nowadays, we have the ability to cure it if it's caught in time. But guess what the #1 food of this rattlesnake is? Yeah, it's this baby ground squirrels. So if we as humans decide to go out there and disrupt God's plan, God made us to be good stewards. And being a good steward means to be wise, to be educated. And hopefully that's what you'll get, a little bit of education about the snakes today. So if we go out there and we pick up a stick and we go kill all the snakes, then what we end up with is an overpopulation of some animals and not enough of others. The balance is disrupted. So we need to be very cautious of that. And that's one of the things. If you get caught killing this snake in the state of California, a rattlesnake, without a purpose, you know, if you're out hiking and you see a rattlesnake go across the trail and you pick up a stick and go kill it, you can be fined. And it's about, I think it's up to $500 now. Now, if that snake is a threat to you, if he's in your camp, in your house, or up around your area, yeah, you can kill it. But you know what I said earlier? Almost 97% of the people that were bitten were messing with a snake. And a prime example is that out in Irvine, out of O'Neill Park, there was a man and his brother. Right next to that area? Well, there's a lot of rattlesnakes out there. This guy came out there with his brother and his 2 young sons. So they went walking along. They were out on a hike. They saw a rattlesnake. Dad picks up a stick. All right, I'm going to show the boys how a bad dude I am. He takes the stick. He whacks at the rattlesnake. Well, when he went back up like this to whack at it again, the snake had stuck on the end of the stick. And he flips it up in the air, wraps the rattlesnake around his brother's shoulders. Brother was bitten. Brother was not too happy. A bite above the waist is much, much more dangerous. That man almost died. Now, what could he have done to prevent that accident? Leave the snake alone. Now, if you guys are out here and you see a snake on the trail or a lizard, like I said, it's okay to look, but if you see one and you can't tell what it is, see these gopher snakes over here? They try to pretend like they're rattlesnakes, because if they can convince you that they're a rattlesnake, less chance of you messing with them. That gopher snake hisses, he coils up like a rattlesnake, he shakes his tail. In fact, I've heard him in the brush, in the dry leaves, it sounds like a rattlesnake. Well, I have also found 6-foot rattlesnakes with no rattles, folks. They get broken off. So just because it doesn't have a rattle doesn't mean it's not a rattlesnake. So the best thing you can do if you see a snake in the wild, look at it, leave it alone, go tell somebody you saw it, but don't mess with it, because that's how people get hurt. Okay, a couple questions here. Yes, ma'am.
I think that baby rattlers are more dangerous and more impulsive. Is that true?
That's true. Her question or her statement was that baby rattlesnakes are more dangerous. That's a fact. They are born with all the capability to strike. They have their fangs in order. They have full venom sacs. So, and also the venom is a little more toxic, and the baby rattlesnake cannot judge how much venom to give. In fact, he doesn't have that much, so he usually gives you everything he has. The more venom you get, the worse the situation. Now, the rattlesnake, like I said, is the fastest striking snake in the world. But it also has some of the best developed fangs in the world. Rattlesnake has 2 big old fangs that fold back in his mouth. When he closes his mouth, those fangs fold back. As you can see here, it's very easy to identify the rattlesnake if you get a good look at him. If you look at the shape of his head, he's got a kind of a triangular shaped head, skinny neck, and a fat body. That is an indication that the snake is poison. Any snake you find that looks like that, beware. But that's not a rule of thumb, because not all poison snakes look like the pit vipers, like the rattlesnakes. Now, I think probably some of you guys, especially in the summertime, you don't have any school, you're kind of bored, sitting around the house, and you got, oh, I got an idea. So you go to mom and dad and you say, hey, would you take me down to the doctor so I can get a shot? You know, I mean, don't you do that? I don't either. It's not fun. But I tell you what, this guy right here, it's like getting a shot twice at the same time with 2 hot needles. When this guy strikes, it hurts. When those fangs go in, the snake squeezes down, and right up on both sides of his head, he has poison glands. When he strikes, he bites, he squeezes, and it happens just so fast you can't even believe it, and he injects that venom just like 2 doctor syringes. Now the fun starts. The pain is excruciating. The swelling is so bad, and it happens so quickly, that it'll swell sometimes so bad that the skin splits like a ripe grape. It turns black. It hurts. You get so sick you think you're dying. You're throwing up. You find sometimes, you know, I wasn't concerned really about dying because I didn't think that I didn't have a reaction to the venom, but I got so sick I kind of thought, you know, Lord, take me home. Enough is enough. The pain is excruciating. I could feel the doctor's breath. The venom from this snake is part of his digestive system. It's what he does when snakes get their prey, when they get their food, they swallow it whole. All snakes, whether it's a poison snake or not. So they have to digest everything. Well, the rattlesnake's given a little advantage because the venom that he injects into that prey helps to digest it from the inside out. So guess what happens to the site of the bite? It starts to digest the skin at the site of the bite. So now it's a double bad. It's digesting the skin. The venom disrupts your body's ability to fight the infection. Now, anytime, you know, if any of you guys ever stepped on a nail? Yeah, you got to go get a tetanus shot. All right? Infection. Well, when this guy bites with those two big fangs going deep into your body like that, infection is the #1 scare. Any of you ever heard of gangrene? Yeah, gangrene is an infection that is so bad that the area that's infected actually dies. It rots. So if you got gangrene in the finger, you know how they cure it, how they save your life? Chop it off. Chop it off. It keeps going. If you don't do anything, the infection spreads. And it just keeps working its way till it finally can be fatal. So you need to get to medical attention. You need to get to a doctor and get a shot of antivenom and also antibiotics. When that snake, like this lady was talking about, when a baby snake strikes you, it's a panic bite. He doesn't know how much venom to give you. When a big snake bites you, it's a panic bite. You don't know how much venom you're going to get. Now, if this snake is hunting for food, and if he's looking for a little baby ground squirrel, he knows how much venom to put into that ground squirrel based on several factors. The snake has eyes, he can see. When that tongue is flicking in and out, that's part of his sensory system. He can smell. This snake has inside his mouth, up on the upside side of his mouth, he has 2 organs. They're called Jacobson's organs. There'll be a test on this, so remember that. Those organs help him determine whether it's food, enemy, what, from the smell. And so when that tongue's flicking in and out, that tongue does nothing, and there's some people used to be afraid. They were saying that the tongue is the danger. You got to watch out for that tongue, boy, it can get you. And you wouldn't believe some of the stories I've heard about snakes. But the tongue only assists the snake in determining, you know, its surroundings. It also has nostrils. It also can see, can feel the vibrations, but there's another unique sensory perception that snake has. This is kind of hard to see for some of you. Normally I don't have this big a group. The snake right below his nostrils, the way he got his name pit viper, is he's got 2 little indentations. Those are called the pits. And those little areas right below his nostrils is what allows him to hunt at nighttime, to determine whether it's food or not based on the body heat of the animal that it's hunting. Now, out in the desert where it's so hot, remember I said the snake is cold-blooded. If that snake goes out in the middle of the day to hunt, he gets fried. He becomes food. Snakes are on the diet of a lot of animals. So one of the ways he avoids that heat of the day and becoming prey himself is to hunt at nighttime. Well, the way he does that is through that sensory perception of the heat, the pits. So when that snake does is he coils up down in the bushes or down around the rocks, right where he smells where rodents have come by, either mice, rats, the little squirrels, whatever. So he just sits there and waits. You know, snakes can't go down, they don't chase down their prey, go, hey, there goes a squirrel, man, and goes out and grabs him. They have to wait. They ambush their prey. So when that prey comes along, let's say it's a little mouse, that snake strikes, he leaves enough venom in that mouse just to kill the mouse, because he judges it by its body size. That's why when something as big as we are, or a horse or a dog or something comes along, that snake panics. He can't eat it. He doesn't know how much venom to put in it. So he may give you everything he has, or he may give you nothing. Now remember I said he strikes at 12 feet per second from the coil position. He doesn't have to be coiled to strike. I had some people in one of the classes I was in, one of the teachers was telling the kids, now if the snake is stretched out, it's okay. He can't strike. Wrong. He can turn and strike very quickly. People say, well, if you pick the snake up and hold it by the tail. Anybody want to try that? I've got a few snakes. It doesn't work. They can come right back and get you. Now, a rattlesnake, when he strikes at a human, it's a bad news because he's afraid. He keeps striking. There was a lady in Elsinore just this spring was weeding. She was pulling some weeds in her garden. Snake struck her in the hand. She jumps back before she could move. It struck her in the leg. It keeps striking. It's panic. You don't know how much venom, but now when he's hunting his food, he knows. He judges. Now, if that mouse comes along, he puts enough venom in the mouse, he doesn't want the mouse to die right away either. You know, he doesn't strike it and then have the mouse die right on the spot. He wants that mouse to take off running. Why?
So then he'd stop running because it would be going to his heart.
Yes. You listened to the class, didn't you? She's a smart lady. Okay. Good lesson. She puts enough venom in that mouse. The mouse takes off running. It pumps the venom all the way through that mouse's system. The mouse dies. The snake follows it by the smell, finds a head, swallows the prey. Now the mouse has already started to digest from the inside out. That's part of it. The venom is it's a protein enzyme. It's part of his digestive system. So all of that, does that make you want to go out and mess with these rattlesnakes? No. So what should you do if you see a snake in the wild? Leave it. Now remember one of the words I used. Anybody remember that first word I used about what these animals are? Yeah, indigenous. That means they belong here. So if you see the snake here or a lizard and you decide, boy, that'd be a good pet, so you pick up one of these lizards and you go home and, hey, Mom, look what I got, you know. Mom says, you can't keep it. What are you going to do with it? People let them go. So if you take one of these lizards you found up here down to the beach area or down at Costa Mesa, Santa Ana, and you say, oh, well, there's lizards down there. But you let that guy go, you know what will happen? He won't live. It'd be like somebody picking you up right here or dropping you off in downtown Chicago. I mean, there's people in Chicago, right? But you wouldn't feel comfortable there, would you? If somebody just dropped you off on the street. So what you need to do is remember, if you see it here, it belongs here. If you want it as a pet, like I said, go to the library, read about it, go to the pet store and get one, and so that you know how to take care of it, what it eats, and this sort of thing. Okay? We'll take a little question time here now. Yes, sir.
The one that bit me, he didn't wrap around or just, or it wasn't a poisonous one.
No, only these kind.
He smelled it.
That's right.
Now you're saying to stay.
I said stay on the paths. Well, how do people make paths? Well, some people, it's like the pioneers back. Most of these paths have been here for a long time. And if you are making a new path, like over at our camp, over in Green Valley Lake, we're making new paths, new trails. So what we do is I go out, look, I know how to look, and I've got all the right stuff to do it with. See, this is what I used to catch the rattlesnakes with. I don't touch them. I learned my lesson the hard way. But you be very careful. So if you're in an area that you're not familiar with, be very careful. Look, but that just because I say stay on the trail doesn't mean that sometimes the snake might not be on there. So you got to watch where you're going also. Yes, sir.
How long does it take to recharge their venom supply?
Okay, good question. How long does it take to recharge their venom supply? It depends on the type of snake. It doesn't take very long. But they're still very cautious of it. That's why they don't want to waste it on something as big as we are or an animal that's too big to eat, because if it gives it all up, it could take it several days to replace it, sometimes longer depending on the snake. So it's very, very cautious on using its venom. Sometimes you'll see snake handlers. People handle snakes, especially cobras. Cobras seem to be the big thing for snake handlers. They play in the flute, you know. Does the snake hear the flute? I don't know why he plays the flute. I guess it's for the people's benefit, not the snake. But you know, it's one thing he does do is he keeps moving. Because if he stops, the snake zeroes in. Aha! And a cobra is very slow. The cobra kind of rears up, spreads its hood, and when it strikes at a big downward arc. It doesn't strike at that big coil position like the rattlesnake. The Cobra can only, it can't reach out and get you. You ever hear that telephone commercial, reach out and touch someone? This guy here mastered that to a science. The Lord really he can reach out and touch someone at half his body length. So a 6-foot snake, and this guy here is almost 5 feet. If you get a 6-foot snake, you can put him in a cigar box, but he can reach out and bite you at 3 feet away. So, and do it quickly. Okay. Yes?
One time I actually wanted to get a shot when I was at
Boy, are you silly. She wanted to get a shot. Yes, sir?
What's their striking radius?
Their striking radius, they can turn completely back on themselves and strike.
How far?
If they're in a coil position, they can strike at half their body length.
Okay.
If they're stretched out, they can't do that. They don't have the range nor the speed, but they can still come back on you. Yes?
That like red thing that you used to catch the snakes,
Uh-huh.
does it have like a lock on it? So that after you catch it,
No, I just have to hold it.
what if your hands slip?
It could be trouble. Yes, sir?
One day, a long time ago, I found this one little snake by one of
Travel in pairs. Normally not. Only in the spring, when they're mating, they will be in pairs sometimes. But other than that, they're loners. Yes. When lizards die, you want to know why their eyes suck back. Well, what happens is the body fluid and the pressure of their body, you know, even some other animals, their eyes will sink back in their head. It's because the body is not, it's not presenting the same pressure. The blood stops the flow, and it doesn't have the same body pressure or the gravitational. Interesting question. Right there. I still can't hear.
These kids were playing with the snake and trying to catch it. Venom was a garden snake,
Yes.
and they were still trying to find it. Would it hurt them or something?
Well, garter snakes and some of the snakes we have here that are called coach whips or red racers, blue racers are very high-strung snakes, and they're very nervous and they strike at anything. It's like these gopher snakes; they bite quite easily, where some snakes don't. Again, you shouldn't. If you want a snake for a pet, go to a pet store and get one. Don't pick one up in the wild because, you know, it's a wild animal and its defenses are to strike at you. Okay, I want to finish up here real quick on the snake bite. Now, if you are unfortunate enough to be one of the few people that are bitten by the snakes, you need to go get medical attention. Now, used to, one of the big items that was required by all good scouts and a lot of people was this handy-dandy snakebite kit. The snakebite kit is very dangerous. I have a friend of mine, his name is Dr. Dave Hardy. He's a physician, works at the Venom Research Lab in Tucson. Also Dr. Jim Glenn, who is a Venom research specialist at the Veterans Hospital in Salt Lake City. They've done extensive research, a 15-year study on treatment of snakebite, first aid treatment, and then they specifically went into the various types of first aid equipment and snakebite kits that are on the market. What they determined was that this snakebite kit here is absolutely worthless. This is called a cutter snakebite kit. Inside it has some twine, string, has a very sharp little scalpel or razor blade, has some antiseptic. The way they used to tell you to treat snakebite, wait a minute, ladies, was if you are bitten, stay calm, take this little scalpel out of here, take the string out, wrap the string around a pressure point, which you do not ever do. You never want to use a tourniquet for this type of snake bite. There are some that you would, but not that one. You cut between the fang marks with the scalpel that's provided, and that opens it up. Then you take the handy-dandy suction cup and suck the venom out. If this kit was used by the doctor himself at its maximum efficiency, it's worthless. It doesn't get enough venom out. The scalpel that comes in here is absolutely dangerous. I personally witnessed a 16-year-old boy in Texas who was bitten right here in the upper thigh with a rattlesnake. His dad took the razor blade and cut the femoral artery. That boy bled to death in 2 minutes. He was dead when the paramedics got there. I have seen ligaments, tendons, veins, arteries, muscles, everything cut that should not have been. First of all, remember what I said, from this type of snake bite, it's a hemotoxic venom. The swelling is so severe, the swelling itself constricts the flow of venom. You do not use ice on a snake bite. First of all, the swelling is beneficial to some extent, but ice also can cause the action of the enzymes in that venom to actually increase. So you do not want to use ice. You don't want to cut it. First of all, if you cut it and release the pressure, and you cut capillaries, it just allows another area for the venom to flow. You don't want it to flow. You want it to stay where it's at. You can get 80 to 90% of the venom out of the snake bite up to 2 hours later. So if you can get to medical help, and I'll tell you, there's very few places today, especially in the United States, that you can be that you can't get to medical help within a few hours. I mean, it took us 3 days to hike in. We were up on the John Muir Trail. We went into the Sierras. It took us 3 days to get back to this lake. This guy was hurt. He broke his leg up there. It only took us 6 hours to get medical help in. They flew in, airlifted this guy out. So if it had been a snake bite, he was still safe. If you are the one that's bitten, you should never be there alone. This is one of the reasons. Have your partner go get help, or if he can carry you out to the vehicle, fine. If they can get the vehicle to you, it's even better. Bring it in, put you in it, get you out of there. You do not want to walk. You do not want to exert yourself. Now remember, I said one of the biggest problems is not the venom, it's the infection. Anybody in here allergic to bee stings or have allergies or asthma or anything? Okay, you need to be extra careful. There is a very good chance, a very strong possibility, if your body already has sensitive to certain things, if you are allergic to bees particularly, you may also be allergic to the venom from the snake. Now that's a double whammy for you. You've got to be even more careful. But the main thing you want to do is try to stay as immobile as you possibly can. Do not elevate the wound. You want to keep it below the heart. Now, a bite above the waist is more dangerous. It's closer. Usually what happens with this venom is it, like I said, it thickens your blood up by the heart valves and it stops your heart. Now, when we talked about the coral snake, that's a different story. The cobras and the coral snakes have an entirely different type of venom. You do not get that maximum swelling like you do from this. There's a case with a coral snake or a cobra, you would want to use a constricting band, not a tourniquet. You don't want to cinch it off, but you want to help slow it down. But it's a very different type of, you don't have the pain, you don't have the swelling, and what it does, it just stops your breathing. It just reacts on your nervous system. So the best medicine is not to mess with the snakes. Remember what I said. Most of the snake bites are from people fooling with the snakes. In both instances, when I was bitten, it was my own snake. I was doing my research. I was collecting snakes for venom research. The snakes got me. And most of the time, that's the problem. Now, some zookeepers who are in constant contact with very dangerous snakes immunize themselves with the venom. Now, you can take small doses of the venom and build up a tolerance to it so that if you're bitten, they have very little effect. The only problem is you've got to continue doing that. As long as if you stop and then come back and do it later, it can be fatal. So you must continue that immunization. The venom from the snake is used in medical labs and also is used to make the antivenom. They inject the venom from the pit vipers into horses, take the blood, and they make a serum that they inject you with if you go to the hospital and if you are bitten. But that is really the only means. There was some research done on electroshock. People applied electricity to the site of the snake bite. There was some people saying that neutralized the venom. Not true. That has been proven within a shadow of a doubt. It does not have any effect. Does not work. I forgot to mention the two kinds of snakes that have been known to kill humans that aren't poison. The world's largest snake, the biggest snake ever recorded, was a regal python. That snake was measured at 37.5 feet long. Now that's a big snake. To give you an example, in your mind, imagine a 3-story office building, a high rise. And this 37-foot snake comes crawling along, decides he's going to go up. He crawls up that building. His head would get to the roof before his tail left the ground. That's a big snake. That snake was witnessed to kill and swallow whole a 200-pound black bear. So you'd just be an hors d'oeuvre, huh? A little snack. The next biggest snake was also measured. Now, there's been stories of snakes, I mean, 100 feet, 50 feet, I mean, these horrendous tales about snakes. But the next biggest snake was a 35-foot anaconda. They witnessed that snake swallow a deer that had 12-inch antlers on it. So those snakes have been known, but they're not found in the United States, so you don't have to be worried about them. And another story, real quick, is snakes. I had some people tell me, especially in the South, there's a lot of myths and stories about snakes. And this guy was telling me about this snake that was so fast that it outran him on a horse and turned and came back in this blue racer. Well, to tell you, I know you guys want to hear this, how your tax dollars are being spent. About 8 years ago, the U.S. government funded some research on the speed of snakes. They put in several $1 million to find out what the fastest ground speed of a snake is. And these guys went out there with some fine equipment. I mean, they had all this electronic stuff, and I don't even know, they may even have satellites and radar guns, everything. And they determined that the world's fastest snake on the ground was also the world's second biggest poison snake, called the black mamba, found in Africa. A 12-foot poison snake. That blazing speed is, boy, that'd scare you, wouldn't it? Well, they found out after all of this research, and it was pretty neat. Well, I'll tell you, I was so excited about it, that snake had a blazing speed of almost 4 miles an hour. You can walk faster than that. There is no snake that can outrun you, folks. There's no snake that'll chase you. Now, if you make a cobra mad, it might come out at you. But I don't know about you, I don't intend to make cobras mad. But no snake will chase you. They're really, their first instinct is to get away. Okay? All right, I'll take one more question and then we'll wrap it up.
Does the longest snake go faster at striking?
Now, the longer the snake doesn't mean it's faster. They still are all pretty much, they strike from this coil position, so it really doesn't matter how long it is. Okay? Okay. Now, if you have any other questions or you'd like to look at close,